Volka says na Erika, na algata BT coordinators, na of course former member, minister, and I will plenty na the acknowledging presence of Bougainville Government and his office member, which is good. But you might have noticed me walking in limping a bit. I've been hospitalized by a stroke. That took me out of action in the middle of a meeting. That was when we were drafting the Irakone Covenant. So I'll tell you my story too. I'll take you to where we started off, we finished off when you last saw me in an official capacity. That was time during the conduct of the referendum. If you will remember the the coordinators in your first dialogue, initial early stages of your dialogue, we were basically doing dialogue over the referendum in making sure that the people were referendum ready. And if you will recall your dialogue, there were 3 agendas that we were trying to get our people to talk about. They were based on a strategy called the Trident strategy. The Trident strategy had 3 prongs in it. The internal prong, which is Bougainville's own preparations, internal activities within Bougainville. The second one is the national prong that focused on intergovernmental negotiations and consultations and dialogue between government of PNG and Bougainville. And the third prong was the international prong, through which we were able to get people like Paxia, United Nations, so that we were supported by the international community. That was the strategy we were following. The trick in that strategy is not on the prongs itself. The trick is on how you balance the prongs, which means if you fast track one prong too much, you might become a hindrance to the other 2 prongs. So we were carefully moving the internal prong through the referendum readiness, national prong through the JSB, the formal meetings between government of PNG, and then the international prong through support to the United Nations to support the Kamlo Referendum Commission. So we were able to score 97.7% because we followed that strategy. To this day, people think the 97.7 independence vote came as a miracle. No, it did not come as a miracle. It came because we worked hard for it. And I'll take this moment to say thank you to all of you. Because all of you, I'm not new to you. I was the head of the referendum when you were in the dialogue. Okay. So that strategy, the Trident strategy, paid off. And then about 75% of the work was done by you. And there's a reason. Because you were the ones engaging the people through dialogue at the grassroots level. You think when the referendum came, it was not the ABG ministers only that voted. It was the people. So you were the ones that were connecting the people through the update, and you were doing it through the ongoing briefs that I was giving you as the head of the referendum, then later as president envoy to Momis. Okay, that chapter is gone. That chapter, we have finished that chapter. And then after the conduct of the referendum, we had a new government. When President Ismail came into power with his new cabinet. But after the formation of government, there's something that stayed on. The first chairman of the Brooklyn Committee was late Cherry Napto, who changed Batavi. But as soon as late Cherry Napto entered parliament, and when he was appointed as the chairman of the post-referendum process, what he did was that he passed a motion. He got the parliament to pass a motion. That motion was to adopt the Trident strategy. That Trident strategy will be brought forward from the referendum preparation now into the independence preparations. Which means the BTD coordinators, I think in my view, you will still have a role, because I cannot think of other civil society person who was doing awareness on the Trident strategy. So the Trident strategy was adopted by the ABG Parliament as the current strategy through which they will prepare Bougainville for independence. So once again, in the same way, we prepared Bougainville for referendum. The independence preparations will go in a similar manner as we did with the referendum, meaning we will have an internal prong, and the internal prong, the first thing you will notice is that it has independence readiness. That independence readiness was adopted from the name referendum readiness. So nothing has changed. So we are just taking the referendum preparation strategy then into the independence preparation strategy. So that's a major activity at the moment under the ABG. That is making sure each constituency is made independence ready. Okay, the independence readiness is happening at two levels. The first level is at the civil society, making the people ready for independence. That's a civil society level. The second level is through making the government ready, by making Bougainville prepare itself for independence institutionally. So the second major activity that is going in the villages, or at least beginning to go out from the ABG, is the constitution making process. They have made awarenesses, they have made launching. I haven't seen any of the commissions consulting the people yet. I think in the village, but we'll find out what they will be doing. Okay, that's the internal prong. On the national prong, you will notice two things. On the national prong is the national government ABG interactions, and we have two formal bodies doing it. The first body is the JSB, which has not become too prominent at this stage, because JSB deals with normal autonomy and RDG issues. The second major government-to-government interaction is the post-referendum consultation. I want you to follow my presentation carefully, because I've seen that there's not been any systematic awareness by any of the members into their own constituencies. So what I might be giving you is something that you know Harim yet, and I want to listen to me carefully, because I have participated in all of the meetings right to the time I got the stroke and ended up in the village. So the second, which is more prominent, is the post-referendum consultations. The peace agreement requires the two governments to consult over the result of the referendum. There have been 3 consultations already. The first consultation was in Kokopo. The second consultation was in Wabek. The third consultation was at the APEC building in Mosby. Okay. In the first consultation in Kokopo, the ABG, the president on behalf of the ABG, presented to the Prime Minister saying that the people have voted for independence and ABG wants independence to be declared by 2025. And there's a reason for it. 2025 marks that normal timeline of the ABG. If you try to declare independence on another timeline, we might run into constitutional difficulties because we need to have something, some body, some formal body governing Bougainville be on 2025. So it's in our convenience. We might just we have to declare independence by 2025. That's the timeline of our own government, lifeline of our own government. Okay, the president presented the timeline. The timeline did not only include the declaration date, it included all the activities that Bougainville needs to do to make sure that declaration is done by 2025. And it followed the trident order, meaning internal Bougainville activities, which includes Bougainville, constitution making of Bougainville, the ratification, and all other processes. The Prime Minister received the President's presentation in Kokopo, and he said he will respond to it by the next consultation. So the next consultation took place in Wabek. So it was in the Wabek consultation that Prime Minister responded by saying, yes, but we want the declaration to be in 2030. After a lot of negotiations, the two sides compromised that the declaration has to be no earlier than 2025, but no later than 2027. 2027 is how far the ABG can go. And while agreeing with a declaration, they also agreed on a roadmap, Wabek roadmap. Wabek roadmap includes the target date for the ratification, target year for the ratification, the constitution making process, and all other smaller processes that which will make sure that independence is declared by 2025. The Wabek was the major activity that came out of Wabek was the agreement that independence will be declared no earlier than 2025 and no later than 2027. And that language was borrowed from the peace agreement. So we cannot lock ourselves to a specific date. It's very dangerous. We have to give ourselves a period so that if we go late, we can actually have enough time, flexibility to take care of the last minute things that we need to brush up. Okay, the ABG wanted an agreement. When the two sides agreed on the Wabek roadmap, the two sides, the ABG proposed that let's have a document. Let's have a document that will summarize all the commitments that you've made in Kokopo, all the commitments you are now making in Wabek, to summarize all these activities into an agreement. The ABG proposed that we will call this agreement Independence Treaty. And the reason for wanting a treaty is that under the Papua New Guinea Parliament process, the only document you can ratify is a treaty. Because because the peace agreement specifically mentions ratification. To make it technically possible, we had to find a way to call it a treaty. The national government rejected it. The ABG compromised, saying that, okay, we don't care what name we use, as long as this agreement, whatever we use, whatever we call it, still maintains the 2025 and 2027 commitment that you have made. So the two sides, they met for a third consultation. They met at the APEC house in Mosby. And the APEC house did not focus on the BABEC commitments, because the commitments were made already. The APEC consultation focused more on the ratification. The ratification is an open-ended clause in the peace agreement. The peace agreement does not say this is the process through which we will bring the referendum result to the ratification. That's one. Number two, PNG Parliament had ratifications done, but they had only ratified international treaties, which means there is no precedent through which the PNG Parliament will ratify the independence vote, which means the two sides must agree on the process through which the two sides will bring the referendum result to the ratification. It's probably clear. The peace agreement never talked about the process. In the same way, it never gave us the process to conduct the referendum. That's why we had to create a referendum charter to conduct the referendum. In the same way, the peace agreement never gave a process for the ratification. So the two governments had to agree on a process to bring the result to ratification. So after a lot of negotiations, the two sides agreed we must focus more on an agreement that we will use to bring the process, bring the referendum result to the ratification. And there's a reason for it, because the ABG did not want to leave the process open-ended before Papua New Guinea goes into elections. Just in case Rogut Marapla Prime Minister come up na Senisi Marape, they might reject whatever process Marape agree long and finish. So the strategy then was to lock it into a document, lock the commitments into a document, and to produce that document. The two sides agreed that the name of that document will be called Era Kone Covenant. And the name Era Kone Covenant, the reason why Era Kone was called, Mahapi along took place, or we call him Era Kone, Ela Beach. Covenant is just another word for agreement. So they used the word covenant to make the agreements sound significantly stronger. Because covenant, you have a covenant, and you adding tasol on top long gone. Okay, long this Era Kone covenant negotiations, Emi kisim around 4 meetings. Mi plug pipeline him at la time no deadlock. So by the third meeting, maybe in kisim stroke long Holiday Inn. That's where I was knocked out of action. Mr. Plum place now me campaign in Mupla out of the village. I haven't gone back to work yet, but me am must through long time meeting Mupla na give him blick update alongside me. So, but now at this stage, long second prong, long ABG. At least the ABG was able to secure a document, secure an agreement before going into elections, so that we can hold on to this document and go back to the ground and work more on our internal prong. That's why you will see them working more on the constitution making process and making their constituencies independence ready while waiting for these elections and the formation of the new government in PNG. So in my view, we are safe. At least we were able to capture that document, Era Kone Covenant, because the Era Kone Covenant already agrees that the two sides will keep on working at the technical level. Two, it also agrees that the two cabinets will have a cabinet resolution making sure that the referendum result is brought forward for ratification and is ratified in order to make sure there's a ratification. Ratification is done in time for a declaration that could be done in 2025 or at least not later than 2027. Dr. Plomi, by close to finish because me no like making reply sleep. There's one key ingredient that is key activity that is coming up where I've listened to all the candidates and all these candidates going up for national elections, no one has mentioned it so far. So which means most of the candidates actually do not know what they will do when they go to parliament. This activity is in the WABEC roadmap. The WABEC roadmap, the two sides agreed that there will be a national awareness. There will be a national awareness in PNG on Bougainville independence. And it's a very important awareness. Because suppose you are looking, it is us Bougainvilleans who want independence. It is us Bougainvilleans who know our history. It is us Bougainvilleans who voted for independence, not Papua New Guineans. One public, even some members in parliament, only the new generation, maybe somebody knew about us because he saw the 1975 September 1 declaration. Maybe Bill Skate knew about us, but Bill Skate is dead. Somebody is dead. There's a new generation of Papua New Guinea politicians who do not care what Bougainville is about, who do not care about independence. So, we have an important work to do. On the ground, we are making sure that Bougainville is ready for independence. We have another task that no one has touched yet. That is to make Papua New Guinea to let go Bougainville. We need to prepare Papua New Guinea to let us go. Because when the ratification, when the referendum result is taken to the floor of Papua New Guinea Parliament, only 4 MPs from Bougainville will be sitting in that forum who will have voting rights. But you imagine, what about Amas? 112, Amas? Sit in the parliament and they receive this table, this report under the peace agreement that will be tabled by the Minister for Bougainville Affairs. And we will be wanting them to vote for our future. We do not want them to vote blindly. We need to tell them what we wanted. So there's a need. The two sides agreed. Prime Minister Marape said, please, I know why you want independence because I grew up there. But what about the Arab MPs? They do not know what you want. So you must help me with a national awareness. So one key activity, one key dialogue that will be taking place ahead of referendum is a nationwide awareness. My view is this. That awareness needs to happen at 2 levels. The first level is the official leadership level. The second level is the civil society level, because independence of Bougainville will affect livelihood all will affect also lives of normal Papua New Guinea citizens, especially those who are married in Bougainville and vice versa. And there are key messages that those of us who want independence, we must convey to the Papua New Guinea government and their leaders. I've listened to all the statements during consultation by Papua New Guinea leaders. They only have two messages. I've seen them cry with tears in Rabaul, Wabek, and Mosby. But I've summarized the key message to 2 points. The first point, they don't know why we want to leave them. Because we are one family, one people, one country. That's one. Tete all in Osawe, all Bougainvillean, all black skin, all like implant is something too much. Why should you leave us? So we need to respond to that question. Because an ordinary Papua New Guinean never felt the pains that we felt and fought for independence. So we must fight their ignorance. Number two statement, I've heard many of their leaders present during consultations is, will you be okay? If we let you go, you are our brothers and sisters. Will you be okay in your own in your new country? Because you fought already after declaring your self-independence. You went into so many divisions. You still have people stealing vehicles, making huge demands. Will you be okay as a new government, as a new country on your own? So those are my personal observations that I've made out of there, which I think if we do a national awareness, we can remove them. So we must do that national awareness. And we need to do it jointly. I was the master of ceremony during the joint roadshow of Se Pukatemu and Albert Punga, the joint referendum awareness. That joint referendum awareness helped Pukatemu understand why this referendum cannot be blocked. So, which means, as a dialoguer, I'm a dialoguer. This is the time we should be spending more time with them. We need to give them comfort. The war, we fought the war. In my view, we won the war. We had the peace building process. In my view, we have successfully conducted the peace process. Third, restoration of civil authority, return of rule of law. In my view, we have also done that by establishing the ABG as a government. Return of services, we are not starving, we have something. And politically and under right to self-determination, we have successfully won the majority on independence. 6, we have got the Prime Minister's commitment under WABEC timeline on 2025 and 2027. In my view, there's one last thing we must do. And that last thing is not something we need to do at law. We will do it's not so much at law. It's not so much about politics. We have one last homework to do. That homework is to prepare Papua New Guinea psychologically to let us go. We need to help them to let us go. At the moment, they are struggling. They are suffering. And come the new government, we will have new parliamentarians who, some of them will have never played any part in this process. So we are also going to a stage where soon at the ratification, our future will be in the hands of people who don't know Bougainville independence. And not only that, it will be in the hands of people who don't care about Bougainville independence. So at the moment, I do not know what has happened after the signing of the Era Kone Covenant, because I've been in the village for 3 months now with the stroke. I've tried my best to leave the wheelchair, but I successfully left the wheelchair and left the walking stick. And thank you to my Paksia friends who donated a wheelchair for me when I was in Port Moresby. Thank you. And Nick finished my story from me. So in my view, I urge the dialoguers to talk to Stephanie, the head of the Independence Department, to make sure if we can bring this dialogue to a national level. Because now you are working on the internal prong, dialogue long plus. There needs to be a dialogue at the national level to make sure you talk to Papua New Guineans. Because I've even seen misunderstanding and misconception that when Papua New Guineans talk as if when Bougainville becomes independent, we'll take Bougainville to the moon and they'll never see us. We need to tell them no, declaration is just about a state, just about sovereignty. Otherwise, we will still come and sell our bitonat in Port Moresby. Otherwise, you can still come and sell your chimbu bilum. Otherwise, you can still mareti or ika. It's just about one family having 2 countries.
Yes, building a new relationship.
In the same way, one family can have 3 business companies. So we need to ease them. We need to help them remove their fear and anxiety. So we are almost there. So I think we are almost there. We will do it. We will be an independent country anyway. It's now no country west happiness. Thank you now. God bless you.